All right, another patron request here, this time for Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, that was written and directed and starring Kenneth Branagh. Obviously, he didn't write Frankenstein, that obviously would be Mary Shelley, but you got what I mean. The screenplay. This one has Robert De Niro as Frankenstein's monster. I think that's probably the thing that I would remember it best for. But I saw this when it came out, and I don't think I've seen it since. So I was pretty curious to revisit this one. And this also has Helena Bonham Carter in it as the love interest. She's also his stepsister, which we'll talk about that. We got Aidan Quinn, we've got Ian Holm, we got John Cleese. We got a hell of a cast here. And yeah, I mean, this is from 1994. This is a good year for movies. Pulp Fiction, Shawshank Redemption, it goes on and on. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. It's been a long time. 94. That's 31 years ago. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. And we start in 1794 and then jump back all the way to 1773, which he's, I don't know, maybe like 10 in the opening, and then it's 21 years later, which, no, I think is how that works out. And so he's like 31, and he's only like 34 in real life. So like at first I was like, whoa, wait, how quick is this supposed to be? But actually lines up pretty well. So he's not much older in reality than his character is supposed to be. So all's good on that end. So we get these guys who are trying to chart the Arctic past, very reminiscent of the season of The Terror, season 1. There's actually a season 3 coming out. I never did see season 2, but we did cover season 1 here on the channel. And, of course, anytime I see an iceberg hitting a ship and starting to sink it, I'm going to be reminded of the Titanic. But honestly, like, one of the worst ways you could possibly die for me is, like, being lost at sea. Also, falling into really cold water, especially, like, under the ice. I've said it many times. I don't know if there's like an awesome way to die. I don't want to die, period. But obviously the like go-to is 100 years old, warm, cozy in your sleep. That is the ideal way. But I don't know if you had to make a ranking, a tier of worst ways to die, what's like the top 5 for you personally? I think being burned alive is probably number 1. I mean, that's just as bad as it gets. Being eaten alive is probably number 2. Being lost at space, like in space or at sea, like just kind of bobbing around, especially in the ocean, because you're just like endlessly just kind of like sitting there. You're trying to keep yourself afloat. It's super cold. There's all these creatures that could be coming. And then eventually your muscles just give out and you can't do anything, and you succumb to your demise. And it's just, that sounds terrifying. That sounds so horrifying. And the fact that fishes and sharkies and I don't know why I called them sharkies, but sharkies and sea life are just gonna kind of eat away at your body, and there's not gonna be anything left of you. I don't know. Those are like definitely top 3. Like impending doom too. Oh boy, that one's just like knowing a meteor's coming towards the Earth. There's nothing they can do about it, and there's like it's gonna hit in like a week or a month or something, and just knowing it's coming and it's going to kill you and your kids and every person and every animal and every bacteria and all the life on the planet and the planet itself. That's definitely up there too. That's probably the worst, actually, just because it's like it's everybody. Anyway, all right, moving on. I was just thinking about it when the guy falls in the ocean, and he just goes under the iceberg. I know that's at the end, but it just made me think about it, and I was just like, that is such an awful, awful way to die. And I mean, it's not a completely off topic kind of discussion, because this film's all about death, his inability to let go, and trying to play God and bring someone back from the dead that he's lost. It starts here with his mother, and his mother dying is really kind of the motivation for what ends up driving him towards what becomes Victor Frankenstein, the mad scientist that can bring people back from the dead. And I like that. I don't know. I've never read the book. I'm not super familiar with the original Frankenstein movie. I've seen it, but I don't remember it very well. And then there's all the Hammer Frankenstein movies, which there's like 7 of those things. They all have like a lot of different storylines and whatnot. So like, I don't know exactly what the actual Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the modern Prometheus, whatever the hell the original title of that book is. I don't know what the actual story is, but what you get in here is kind of an amalgamation, a compression, and a combination of both Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, which I actually thought was kind of cool. You get like 2 for the price of 1 here. So I dug that. I like that the monster becomes educated, is intelligent, especially since his brain that he's been given is that of the guy who, like, well, we'll get into that actually, because there's a lot to talk about with that. I think there's a lot of cool tweaks here, like ironic tweaks and such. So let's talk about it. All right, so when he lays out in the field with his sister and then another woman, and he puts a rod in the ground and he's waiting for the lightning, which of course is like, inspiration for what he later uses to resurrect the dead. He counts down, and he's like 3, 2, 1, and the lightning strikes like right as he gets to it. Like, what? This is just silliness. Like, how the fuck does he know when the lightning's gonna strike? I found that to be kind of funny. And then they're sitting there and they're electrically charged. You can actually see the electricity in their body. Like, this is all nonsense. Like, what even is this scene? It's supposed to show, like, how intelligent he is and what a grasp he has on science. And he can kind of like make the impossible happen, and he's also kind of fearless. Yeah, I don't know what this scene is. It's pretty silly, to be honest. But yeah, you've got your brother sister thing. They met when they were older, not old, or I guess he's like 10, and I don't know what age she's supposed to be, but I don't know. We've talked about this before. I don't really care. I don't really see the huge issue with it. Outside of, I guess, the argument would possibly be grooming, because he is an older brother, and if he was grooming her to be his girlfriend, wife, in the future, that's not good. But if they just kind of organically fell in love after being together, and especially back in this time when it wasn't as taboo, because like no one really cares in the movie. I thought that there was gonna be some kind of pushback on, like, you can't be together, you're brother and sister, and it's like, no, we're just stepbrother and sister, and we've always loved each other and whatever. No, that never happens. Like, they're kind of hiding it, sort of. Like, they go outside to have their first kiss, but they do it right in front of an open window where everyone's inside, like, dancing and hanging out and goings on. So they're not hiding it very well. Everybody can see them, but it also doesn't appear that they need to hide it all that much, seeing as how they tell everyone and no one cares. Everyone seems to be very happy for them. So that's fine. I'm fine with it. I don't give a shit. I mean, They're two consenting adults. They're not blood related. Have at it. And then we've got his buddy here, who I think I'd have to confirm, but is this not the actor who plays Amadeus, or am I crazy? That's who he looked like to me, but I could be completely wrong on that one. Anyway, he's in medical school alongside of Victor, and he passes out from the sight of gore. Now, I saw in something, I think it was Dexter, during the first season, when Masuka and them, or was this wasn't Original Sin? I don't think it could be. No, I think there's like an intern that they're gonna be taking on in that first season of Dexter, and they basically say like, well, if they pass out, they're no good, like they can't do this. Which wouldn't you just like? Wouldn't you gain a tolerance to it eventually? Right? Like, I don't know. Like, if you've seen it enough, wouldn't you eventually just kind of get used to it and not pass out from it? Or is it just like a risk, or like is that just like how the brain operates? Like, if you pass out from the sight of blood and gore, then you're always going to do it. I can't imagine that's true. So I saw that once, and I was wondering how truthful that was. But yeah, if you want to be a doctor, especially a surgeon, you definitely cannot pass out from the sight of blood and gore for obvious reasons. So I don't know. And then we have an anti-vaxxer who kills this doctor who Victor has become close with, and has a mutual understanding of more like rejected science and pushing the boundaries of what is possible. And this guy's like trying to cure these people and give them a fighting chance. And vaccines are kind of a new thing, and even in modern times there's loads of anti-vaxxers. I don't want to get into that because that's a whole can of worms, and everyone has their thoughts on that shit. But funny enough, this is the guy who's trying to save his life. He's trying to, as I said, give him a fighting chance against this outbreak that's happening of cholera. And he kills him. He stabs him. He's like, no, you're not injecting me with this shit. Which, as I said, I think that that's pretty relevant in this modern era, where we have a huge surge of anti-vaxxers. And then ultimately, though, he is what gives that guy life, because they hang him for that. And then when Victor uses the body parts, he takes the brain out of the doctor, who was the one who he killed. So it's like he tried to save his life. His thanks for that was to kill the guy, and then he again gives him life by donating his brain to him. Obviously not with his consent, but still, I found that very ironic and cool, and I dug that. That part of the story, and addition, if that is an addition. I don't remember anything like that in the other stories, and there's been so many Frankenstein stories. My body wants to yawn so bad while I'm talking. It's incredible. I'm like fighting it off so hard right now. I'm not even tired. I'm not even remotely tired, but my body wants to yawn, and I'm just sitting here like, don't do it, trying to breathe through it. It's so funny. Anyway, then we've got he uses ambiotic fluid from women's births to use in his regeneration chamber, which is kind of funny because this ends up working, but it also ends up killing the monster, because there's this really funny scene where after he pulls him out of his makeshift womb, and he's trying to get him up. They're slipping and sliding all over this. It feels like a comedy skit. They just keep slipping and sliding, and then he like brings him over, and he ends up getting like, he tries to put him up on something, and then it like gets him hanged, and he's that, I don't know. I found that scene to be actually pretty funny, not as like thrilling and devastating as maybe they were going for. But yeah, he's just kind of, I don't know. It was really funny to me because he was like leaving his wife, his fiance, like wants to marry this girl. He's been in love with her his whole life, and then he's like, no, like, you know, like, I gotta do this. And she's like, if you don't give this up, I'm out. And he's like, no, my work is my life, and I'm not giving it up. And then that night he tries to like resurrect this guy, kind of fails because he ends up accidentally hanging him. And then like he's done. He's like, all right, pack it up. Like, he told his girl, like, I can't, no way. And then within 24 hours is like, fuck that, just kidding, let's get back together. They kind of do that back and forth in this movie, which is funny. I do like the chemistry between Branagh and Bonham Carter. I think that they work well together, and yeah, I think she's such a sexy, cute lady back in the day. And he has more of like a dialed down It's Alive. Obviously the one in the original Frankenstein is much more grandiose and robust and just like, it's alive, he's going insane. And in this one he's kind of just like, it's alive, like, that's it. So he really dialed that down, which, yeah, I dug his take on it there. I don't know how the stitched together limbs and brain and all the things that he put back together are healed. Like, when he's trying to get him up in the amniotic fluid, like, his body should be tearing apart, like, but it's healed. Like, the wounds have healed somehow. The body wouldn't start healing itself and stitching it, the stitches, the pieces of the body going back together like that, until he was alive, right? So that was kind of funny to me that his body still worked. Like, he wouldn't be able to stand up. He wouldn't be able to like try to pull him and pick him up. He'd be ripping his arms off. All that's holding together his limbs and everything are stitches at that point. Like, the body has to become alive, and then it has to start regenerating new cells and bringing the bodies and the limbs back together. So silly, whatever. And then I already talked about all that. The people in town square, of course, think he's like patient zero of cholera, so they all try to hunt him down. This is where he starts to live with this family who's dealing with hunger, and they're dealing with this asshole who's coming to collect from them. This mafia-esque, strong, like hired muscle who comes over there and demands, some form of fucking protection money or like whatever. It's just some kind of toll or whatever. And yeah, like he goes out and he forages and he gets all this food for him, and he leaves it out there, and they like refer to him as this like guardian angel or something, and he's like so touched by that, and he watches them through there, and he like wants to be a part of their life. That shit is sad. That shit is devastating. And he learns how to read by the watching in on them as they're educating their kids, and then he picks up the book and he starts piecing things together, and his brain starts connecting things, and he realizes what was done to him and how he was created, and he holds Victor responsible for all of this, and he then ends up killing this debt collector who's showing up and goes in and talks with the dad, and then the family comes in and attacks him and pushes him out. And he's out crying because this is some family he's grown to love. He's attached to this family, and they reject him as he always feared, and that is fucking sad. That is a genuinely devastating scene. But this is much different than the kid that he encounters and then picks up and throws in the water and she drowns and they come after him. Like, no, this family he actually genuinely loves, and does not kill. He does not harm their children. He doesn't do anything. They end up doing more harm to him and then abandoning the house while he's away. And when he comes back, he's just pissed, which I totally get. And I mean, even the grandfather though, like, tries to protect him and is like, no, leave him alone. And he like touches his face and he's like, you poor man. Awful, just so awful how they treat him. And then, oh man, when they think that the woman is responsible, and they hang her and they like throw her off of this tall wall and her neck snaps, that was actually one of the more brutal hangings. Still, the most brutal hanging in a movie is in The Omen. It's all for you, Damien, and she goes and she hits the glass, and there's just such a weight to it, such a realistic feel to it. But this one's gnarly too, the way she hits and her neck snaps and stuff. Brutal stuff. I thought that was going to be the bride. I thought that he was going to try to bring her back for Frankenstein's monster, because he comes shortly thereafter and is like, I want a bride. I want someone like me for me as a companion. And he's like, no. And he's like, I'll have my bride or you won't have yours. Like, if you marry your bride before I get one, like, I will ruin your fucking world. And he doesn't listen. And it's like, what are you doing? What an idiot. Like, I get it. He finds it to be extremely unethical and this and that, but it's like, you got to deal with that problem first. He tries to completely ignore his issues, and that's the biggest problem anybody will ever run into. You just got to address things, no matter how hard they seem. The longer you wait, the more they will fester, the worse they will get. You cannot ignore your problems. You just can't do it. Easier said than done, 100,000%. I am living proof of that. There's been plenty of things I've put off for way too long, but for someone who can't take their own advice, it's still good advice that I would listen to, but I don't, because I'm too afraid, I guess. I don't know. I do most of the time. I mostly take care of my problems when they happen, but there's certain things, they're tough. They're fucking tough. And yeah, just the mob mentality, like the lynch mob mentality, very Halloween Kills, Evil Dies Tonight. They're chasing around this, small, fatter, balding guy that's like, no, obviously not Michael. But as my wife and so many others have said, that's the hysterics, right? That's the mob mentality of just like, we want retribution. We don't care if we're right. We don't care if it makes sense. We just want to feel better. We want some kind of catharsis. We want some kind of, vengeance. We want to make it right, and we just are going to pick a random person to make it feel right through. And that's just so awful. I would never want that. I would never become that person. I truly can say that honestly and sincerely. No matter what happened, yes, I would want justice, but I would want to make sure that justice was accurate, that the right person was on the receiving end of said justice. And then dude, he does not give him his bride, and this goes poorly. He doesn't even get to consummate his marriage. They've been talking letters, communications, patience, all this stuff. He's been really trying to be patient. They're classic old school. They're waiting for their wedding night. They get in there, things are going hot and heavy, and then some noise happens. He goes out to check, the monster comes in, fucking rips her heart out of her chest while it's still beating, shows it to Victor, and then disappears after throwing her head first into the lamp next to the bed that catches her whole head on fire and burns her. That scene is actually brutal. That whole murder sequence and the defacing of her, or the disfiguring of her, same thing, and just it's actually fucking vicious. The way her body hits that fire lamp and just ignites her head, and her body has such a weight to it, and her whole head is engulfed in flames. And I don't know, there was just something so mean-spirited about it. It was great. It was fucked up, and I can't blame the monster. It's like, dude, I warned you. You don't get to have happiness while I'm living my worst life. You gave me life, but what is life if it's awful? That ain't much of a life, right? So I totally get it. And then, yeah, I was actually pretty surprised, like, when after that he starts putting together her body and everything, and then I thought he was making the monster his bride, and it was like, no, this is still for him. He's just making this girl for him. And it's like, are you never going to try to, like, admit that you have this monster problem? That you just think he's going to, go away? You know he's going to break in there and be like, claim her for himself. Like, what the fuck do you think is going to happen? I don't get he's this brilliant scientist doctor, but he's just an idiot when it comes to common sense things. Like, of course the monster's not going to let you have her. He's going to try to take her for himself. And she's, like, torn. Like, she goes over to him and she feels his face, and then she feels hers and looks at herself, and she, she will not live like him. She can still kind of remember who she is because she says Victor's name, and it's like she realizes, like, what's happened to her, and she goes and grabs another lamp, a gas lamp, and just, completely sets herself ablaze, right? Just devastating. So tragic, so awful. He takes his bride from him. Another ironic thing, like, he tries to not give him his bride and take his own bride. So the monster tries to take his bride from him, not only by killing her, but then when he brings her back to life, he's going to take the living version of her, which then forces her to realize what's happening. So she kills herself once again. So she dies, he resurrects her, he steals her, and then she kills herself again. Brutal, man. Really, really brutal stuff. So that was quite good. And then, yeah, I mean, he goes and he's out there. We go back to the opening, and he's on the ship with Aidan Quinn, and he just ends up dying from his wounds out there. And then the monster sees Victor as his father, which makes sense. I don't know how any of that would work. You would think that the brain would be the doctor, and the doctor would have memories, and he'd just be the doctor. But he's kind of reset. There's still stuff in there. It's why he's able to learn and whatnot so fast. But it's almost like a complete reset, and he's his own person. And he even says, like, he never even gave me a name. That's sad, man. And then, yeah, the ice starts to break when they're at the funeral, and he goes out there and he's gonna burn the body. All the crew members are, like, trying to get the guy to turn around, go home. There's no way, we're all gonna die out here. And the guy's like, who cares? Like, we're gonna live in infamy. Like, we're gonna live in the history books forever if we can pull this off. Like, that's legacy is more important to me than life. And then I guess with his interaction with Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster, and he's just like, he hears this story, and then he sees that there is no life beyond his father, basically, and, like, he has nothing else. And he ultimately makes this sacrifice of ending himself along with his father's body. And this changes this captain, and he's like, I don't know, like, I guess he thinks that life is he values life now. I guess is the best way to think about that ending. Is like he he was completely disregarding human life with putting all of these other people in danger. Like, it's one thing if you want to put your own life in danger. It's your life. You should do with what do with it what you want. But when you're in charge of others, when they're begging you to go home, that they think they're gonna die, that's not how they want to go. And he's just like, fuck that. Like, we're all gonna live on in the annals of history. And it's like, dude, that's not what they want. Like, they want to live like most people do. And so this changes him, and he ends up turning around and being like, let's head home, right? Like, I see now the errors of my ways. So yeah, it's cool. I dug this one. I think it's a very cool Frankenstein. De Niro's monster it's quite good. I don't know. There was kind of a stiffness in it sometimes that I didn't love, but not always. There was just some moments where I don't know if it was the makeup or the direction by Branagh or what, but something was a little off here. But yeah, I mean, I guess this is why he ended up going off and making the horror version of the Pierrot movies with The Haunting in Venice. Like, he already had his roots in horror with this one. I don't know if he's made any other horror stuff, but yeah, this was cool. This was not well received. I know Siskel and Ebert didn't care for it, but or was it Roper and Ebert? Ropert and Ebert. Ropert and Ebert. At that time, I think maybe whatever, they didn't care for it. I dig it. I think it's much better than the original. But I'm not a fan of those old classic black and white monster movies. They just don't do it for me. I've tried so many times, and I can't vibe with them. I don't know what it is. So, anyways, that's that. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Dorian Gray. So that's coming up right now for me. Check out the video. Adios.